Hi again then guys, and welcome to another very special Gran Turismo Sport car review, because once again we are entering the foray of Porsches on Gran Turismo. We're still very much so in that honeymoon period of having Porsches on Gran Turismo Sport. People are in that sweet zone of enjoying them. Personally, I've said for quite some time that most Porsches are probably going to underwhelm people. They're good, but they're not exactly going to cure the common cold, as a lot of people act like they're going to. They're great cars, they're well engineered, but don't expect it to be the be-all and end-all of the game. That being said, this is by far my favourite Porsche to feature so far on Gran Turismo Sport. But I mean, come on, breaking news, Mike likes driving prototypes. Of course, this is my favourite one. The 919 Hybrid, the car which finally toppled Audi from its utter dominance at the Le Mans. We won't mention Peugeot, although they did manage it as well. And the Porsche 919 is a car which, in a similar way to the Toyota TS30 on Gran Turismo 6, is a little bit underrepresented as far as specs go, because Gran Turismo doesn't really show these hybrid prototypes the respect that they deserve when it comes to the numbers on paper, because the car is quoted as having 500 horsepower. That's not the case, because that's from the combustion engine, but that is not including the power and torque from the hybrid system, the EV side of things included. So the reality is, you're actually running roughly double that, so much more impressive than the on-paper specs would have you believe. And of course, when you put that 500 horsepower plus EV power, 386 pound-feet of torque, again, plus hybrid torque, into an LMP car that weighs 875 kilos, straight out of the crate without any in-game tuning, you're pretty much guaranteed to have great performance. Of course, it's going to be quick. It's a Porsche anyway, and they're kind of known for being quick, but then it's a Le Mans prototype. A modern Le Mans prototype at that, and they've been getting better and better over the years, not in terms of top-end speed or even straight-line performance in general, but particularly with regard to cornering, in a very similar way to the Formula 1. They've focused on making them safer and quicker through the corners, rather than just increasing their top speeds more and more, such as back in the Group C days. Personally, I still miss that, the 962 and the 956 and the 917, but of course this is the way things go in motorsport. And a modern LMP, despite its huge lack of top-end speed compared to some of the Group C cars from back in the day, would still utterly obliterate a Group C car around most modern circuits, especially technical ones, because they are so much better through the corners now. Now, in the case of this car, I first decided to turn all of the aids off, except for a little bit of ABS, because I'm lazy like that. And I was shocked at how good this car was. I expected it to be fast, of course, it won the Le Mans after all, but I didn't expect it to be as brilliant and also as fun as it was. Because although I don't dislike Porsches, I do consider them to be very overrated as far as Gran Turismo fans go. People expect them to be, as I mentioned earlier, the best thing since Ferrari's introduction in the game. And although that's not wrong for most people, it certainly can place a little bit too high a bar on what you expect the car to be capable of. In the case of, say, a Panamera, or a Cayenne, or a 911, or a Cayman, or even something like a Carrera GT. They're brilliant cars, but they're not necessarily going to wipe the floor with everything else. That's not the way it works in real life 9 times out of 10, and that's not the way it should work in a game either. With the case of this car though, this car would destroy most of the prototypes in Gran Turismo 6, because although it doesn't have the 300 mph potential of something like a 908 or an R10, what it does have is incredible cornering ability. Not just because it has part-time all-wheel drive, thanks to the hybrid, but because it's just such a well-balanced car. It's so good through the corners, even without any driving aids really, that although you can lose control in some lower corners if you pile on the power a bit too early, and although I would usually go for a perfect video, you know, clean laps, making no mistakes, that kind of stuff, sometimes I like to keep in some footage when I don't do things perfectly. For 2 reasons. One, I don't like these replays to look boring, because of course perfect lap after perfect lap can start to get monotonous, but also just to show that of course I don't consider myself to be a perfect driver, and to show how easy it can be to make mistakes, even in a brilliant car. Now, in the course of driving this car, I did make a fair few, but it was because I was getting used to not only the car, but this circuit as well. It is a new circuit to Gran Turismo, so of course that, with any car, presents new challenges. With that being said though, I very quickly, in a similar way to with the 911 on Willow Springs, improved my lap time, lap after lap after lap. Of course not getting even faster every time, but learning the track, getting more familiar with the car, and I can categorically say that if you are a fan of Porsche, this is the one to go for, because not only is it brilliant on its own, but this one, possibly above all other Porsches in the game, has the potential to be one of the best in its respective class. Because in the Group 1 category, which is what this car runs in, you can get some really eye-catching vehicles. You've got your Group 1 Mazda LM55, your Group 1 Veyron Vision, or not Veyron, Bugatti Vision GT I should say, even your Group 1 McLaren Vision GT, all very spicy, enticing looking cars. But the reality is, having driven quite a few of those, this Porsche is way better through corners. It may not have the sheer straight line power of the Bugatti Vision GT, or even the top speed necessarily of something like the McLaren, but it's so much better through corners it's not even funny. This thing is insanely good, and the pricing is excellent. 1 million credits is brilliant value. Now of course a lot of the Vision GTs are as well, but the reason why I would say this one is particularly good at that price is because if you compare that to Gran Turismo 6's pricing, that would make this the cheapest official prototype of them all. All of the others cost more than that, apart from the VGTs. So when you put it that way, especially compared to something like a 787B or Sauber C9, which both cost well over 2 million credits, and it really goes to show the value of a car like this, and also for its respective price. They could have justifiably made this a 2 or a 2.5 million credit vehicle, and it would still be worth every credit. They haven't, and the fact that it's 1 million really, I would say, seals the deal that this is a must-purchase vehicle. It's a brilliant Porsche, it has incredible trackability, and I was not disappointed by it in the slightest. And that's coming from someone who, as you can tell, is not the biggest of Porsche fans. So, if you haven't checked out this one yet, I would definitely recommend saving up for it, and to be honest, you don't even really need to be a huge prototype fan to appreciate just how good this car can be. Overall then, certainly worth checking out, as I alluded to, and of course you can stick around on the channel to see plenty more reviews, not just of prototypes, but of pretty much every category of vehicle on Gran Turismo Sport. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.